could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your nonprofit origin story?
Hi. So happy to be here. I'm Sonya, and I am a participant member of the Hive. I've been loving it. And my nonprofit history, I say I'm a lifelong idealist, as most nonprofiteers are. They um, want to be a part of more love, more justice, more beauty in the world in so many different ways. Officially, I started in college working. My work study job was with a refugee organization and got to help people with job interview, like prepping for job interviews. So it was kind of coaching back even way back then.
All that time
Um,
ago too. That's amazing.
yeah, so I had studied business and economics, but I knew that I wanted to use that in a way of that social impact. So um, was always drawn to organizations that had a like holistic approach to their work as far as economic development and empowerment of people. So that led me to microfinance. Um, Worked at
Very
a mid-sized organization, kind of wore all the hats from prospect researcher to events and program development. I got my fundraising chops there. But with any organization that's run by humans, created by humans, there's challenges.
yeah.
And there was a lot of change and tension, just as humans are. And I actually had an intern that was studying learning and organizational change for her master's program. I was like, there's a better way to do this. Do
Yeah.
all of this change and manage teams. That led me to that program where I learned about executive coaching and was so jealous for all of my nonprofit professional friends who we're in the most complex environments. We've got this balance of mission and fundraising and programs. And it's not just about the bottom line, it never was.
Yeah.
And yet, decision making is so challenging. And I learned so many different tools and the way that coaching can help executives that, and my colleagues at this program were from AMX and Facebook and all learning all of these ways that leaders in for profit were getting this help. I wanted to bring that back to nonprofit. So, have worked inside as a consultant and on boards and seen the complexity and just have a heart for helping organizations be more effective and human centered using tools and um, helping the actual organization, not just the mission, but the people working in the organization to feel whole and valued and invested in so that they could be strong leaders.
I love that. That's such a great I this conversation is so big and I know we'll only touch on a little bit of it, but just I'm glad that that's starting to be recognized in the space.
Mhm.
And favorite part of nonprofit work, and I use that really broadly because you've been in-house and doing this job, so it may cross over both, but what do you love about this sector and working here?
The way that I define leadership, so I have my own practice of leadership coaching. The way that I define leader is people who see something that needs to be addressed and then they take action to do that and they bring people along. And that is nonprofit people. They see a
Yeah.
need in their community, in the world, and they're taking action. And so I love working with these motivated um, individuals. I think nonprofit people, despite some of the like maybe negative stereotypes, and even like, okay, so we're behind on certain things, like some of those tropes. We
Yeah,
do imagine a different world.
agreed.
And so I think we can use that imagination to also imagine a different way of being leaders. And like we don't have to take everything from the private sector and try to fit it into what we're doing. I think it's time for us to really imagine leadership, organizational development, organizational compensation in different ways because we are imaginative people and want to make things better, not just for that specific cause of the organization, but that could we can bring that in-house and
Yeah,
reimagine how we do our work.
agreed, agreed. If we're revolution like, if there's nonprofit is revolutionizing a lot of different parts of human life and how we act as a society, it's almost like, well, why wouldn't we do that for our
Lead
own
this
people
way.
as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't we do that for our own people? What could it look like? Oh, that's amazing. As a coach, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges in the nonprofit sector?
Yeah. I think we have a lot of work. There is like, I am about gratitude and positivity. And so, like, that is a part of my mindset. But I'm not a Pollyanna around like the reality is that there are structures and there are ways that, and there are things that we're working against um, that are real challenges. Funding is down, need is up. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. And so, I see a lot of leaders committed to the mission and the to-do list is always so long, right? And so it's
Yeah,
like the immediate like, how do we how do we pay payroll? How do we make sure that this stays afloat? And it's like so focused on the immediate that
it's hard to
we
dream.
lose, yeah, we lose
Dream
the
ahead.
bigger picture,
Yeah,
right? Like we're running at a sprint pace and it's a marathon.
yeah,
And then we're like, next week it's gonna slow down. In 2 weeks, it's gonna slow down, and then I remember being at the organization, it's like we always had so many projects, so many things going on. It's like in 2 weeks, it's gonna slow down. See, like, you look out at your calendar, and then 2 weeks comes, and it didn't slow down.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
it keeps going, and it keeps going, and so and it's not that the work will always be there, and it's like, how do we, um, change how we're thinking about our work? Change how we feel about the urgency. I think, last week I was talking to someone, it was like busy begets busy. It's like there's always more to do. And so, acknowledging the big workload is important, but also saying, "How do I want to feel when I
Mm,
engage in my work?"
yeah,
And, I'm a big nerd, love the neuroscience behind coaching and evidence-based coaching around how our brain works. Like, when we're in that urgent fear mode, like, those are the hormones, those are the chemicals that are going through our brain. We're not accessing our most creative thoughts, our most strategic thoughts, and so how do we this is where I love the body part. How do we care for our nervous system so that we can say, "Okay, yeah, there's all this stuff to do, but I'm safe in this moment. How do I
yeah.
access those best thoughts?" Rather than just stay on that train of go, 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 go. So that I know a lot of people are struggling with feeling on that train, like, I don't even know how to get off the train.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think there's like this idea that if we get off the train, we have to like to get off that feeling, we have to set something down. Right. And maybe that is what the reality is. But I love how you're framing this because instead it's changing how we're looking at the work because maybe the work is always going to be big. It's just, you know, everyone in nonprofit marketing who I have many friends in nonprofit marketing is always going, there's always some new platform. There's always we should be doing more we should be
Yeah,
engaging more here, engaging more here, engaging more here. Sometimes that's tied to fundraising. There's a clear plan. Sometimes you're just told to like do
do,
more
do more.
communication, figure out this. And that can be really overwhelming because it feels very time sensitive. It's not, social media is so reactionary that it can feel very up here all the time when you're in that work. But I don't know. I struggle sometimes to even myself, like we were talking about before we got on this, like how do you move beyond those feelings of overwhelm to access your creativity? And I know what my creativity suffers sometimes because of the amount of work, right? Because I'm very much, oh my goodness, the list is enormous. How do I tackle this on a regular basis?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I was just working with my coach the other day and saying the same thing of like, there are so many different ways of building a business, social media or building a community and this
Yep.
platform and that platform and how you show up. She was like, let's define specifically, like make a business decision and then stick with it because and like what does that actually look like? Because our brain can always tell us there needs to be more.
Yeah.
And in my marketing plan, I have a line, I will not do it all.
I love that. I love that. I am very much right now my biggest thing, and I had the word intentionality for the first half of the year, and it served me well. And now it's moved to stability. I'm
Mm,
just like, okay, so you built and you did intentional building, and all of these great things are coming your way. But now, what about stability? Because now you have to figure out a way to stabilize yourself so that I can go rock climbing on a Tuesday when I feel like it, right? And I think that's the
yeah.
same thing that too often things feel so shaky in nonprofit that you're preparing for something bad to happen and stabilizing. It doesn't seem like, or every time the stabilizing kind of happens, nonprofits are like, let's go higher, right? Like, what's next? Because we're kind of maybe stable for a moment. I struggle with that all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that like when we look outside, there is an urgency. I mean, right now, just
Yeah.
the news cycle, the access to seeing what everybody else is doing,
Yeah.
our fear brain tricks on it like, should I be doing something more? And then
Absolutely.
just being aware of like, okay, yeah, when I'm on social media, this is what my brain is offering me of like, maybe I should be doing these things or that thing. And it's like, how do I this is why a practice for me of like in the morning meditation or journaling to help me recenter to be like, it's okay. And one phrase I give myself a lot is keep your eyes on your own mat.
I love that. That's
And I
another
think
great.
nonprofits could do that too because um, there is so much out there, like this challenge and that challenge, and I know I'm sure a ton of marketers are gonna be like, "Yeah, they're bored." You have, 7 bosses, right? And they all are bringing their ideas. So even if you're not on social media, they're all bringing these ideas,
Yeah,
and this is where effective leadership and support of saying, like, "This is what we're choosing. We're gonna go all in here, and we're all gonna put our energy and our brain and our excitement around this campaign."
mhm.
Because it's so easy to look left and right and like, oh, but should we be adding this thing? Should we be adding this thing? And then your brain goes into confusion and indecision. And you spend so much more time there than execution. And then you're
Yeah,
like, see, that didn't work. And you're like, but you weren't it really is directing your brain to what you decided and loving it for your people and going all in there. But our brains are complex. They
they
give us
are
lots of
for sure.
ideas.
Well, and then you put, yeah, state of nonprofit work, state of society, and humans, and,
Yeah.
it's a wild mix, right? For sure.
Yeah.
So in your work in nonprofit, how has peer support factored into your success?
Oh, it has been really huge. I think I always come back to like these 3 human needs. It's safety, autonomy, and connection. And so in my like change management course, I talk about how oftentimes change really threatens those in
Yeah,
different ways. And connection with other people that are in a similar industry, that have a similar passion for creating good in the world, that have dedicated so much of their waking hours to this. It's been really fun, and I love the Hive to connect with people that have that shared vision. Connection is what creates resiliency in humans.
yeah,
And so I think it is so incredibly important, and that's why I love doing the work that I do. When I learned about coaching, I mean, obviously the Hive wasn't around earlier in my career, but it's like, oh man, how nice that would be to have someone outside of the organization be
yeah,
able to see and like give you a different perspective or ask you questions about it. It just elevates our thinking.
yeah. Absolutely. I had the most delightful Hive chat right before we got on, talking to somebody where he's like, "Well, we have to really pull together our impact report before we can make an ask." I was like, "I don't know. Why is that a rule?" Like, who told you that, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
but to me, I was going, yes, there are going to be some donors who are going to want to see impact first. But I said, but you have that. Like, maybe it's not in a formal report, but like you have some ideas of the impact you're
Mhm.
making in your community. I've seen your Instagram. You're putting out some cool stuff. And I just said, waiting until everything's perfect to make an ask, that's a problematic because nothing's ever going to be perfect, right? And what if it takes you another 6 months to put an impact report together? That's a long time. And you're actually missing out on the opportunity to build relationships, potential relationships, even if those people don't become donors yet. It's okay to throw it out there, right? And
Yeah.
so But to him, he's going, "Really? I can do that?" It's like, "Of
Yeah.
course you can do that, right?" Like, "Yeah, for sure. Please do that," right? And I so I think sometimes having that moment to be able to throw ideas at someone else, talk about where you're at, and maybe they're going to go, "Yeah, I think you're on the right track here. I probably wouldn't send that out as an impact report."
Mhm.
Or maybe you're gonna go, "Oh, wait, I could actually make some big moves here before." And nonprofit is so, I know sustainability is a real challenge for most nonprofits financially, regardless of whether they're big or small. And so not, making that decision not to wait for him could be critical. And yeah, I think we all get in our own heads when we're the only ones making those
Totally.
decisions, right? Like, so hard when you don't have a sounding board to talk about those problems with.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I mean about elevating your thinking or just seeing something from a different angle can change everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
for
like,
sure.
"Oh, I thought this was just the way that it was. I heard it once or maybe twice." And then you have these conversations and you're like, "Oh, actually I could think about that differently, and that feels better, that feels more aligned."
Yeah,
And yeah, so often we just believe what we think because that's what we know, and I often tell I have a saying like, "Don't believe everything you think,"
yeah.
and be able to question that, and in these conversations, in these chats, you get to get new ideas, you get to hear new thoughts.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And you've been a member since I think you were one of the waitlist people. I'd have to go
Yeah,
back and
I
check.
think I signed up right away.
I think you were. I think you were just like, "This is amazing. I'm all in." So I really appreciated that early support. Those people initially who were like, "Yeah, I'm a believer. This is great."
Yeah.
Really fueled this at the beginning. So what have you gotten out of your Hive chats to date?
Um, well, every time I come away energized. Like, I don't know, it's like the people that are attracted to this platform, are really great humans, and, I know that when I come in believing in them, believing in what they're doing, we get to use these mirror neurons of just, um, igniting energy and
Yeah,
belief, and sometimes that's just what we need is like, "Oh, yeah, when I get to talk about the mission and someone's excited to hear about it, that makes me excited, and it makes the work so much easier than sitting by yourself feeling like you're in isolation and you're like, "I don't know, is this impactful? Do I need to make a prettier report?" And it's like just talking about what we do can
yeah.
be energizing.
Agreed. I very much thought at first this was going to be everyone talking about the challenges of the work and how burnt out they were, and that would have also been okay, and I'm sure that's still happening. But instead that invigoration is not something that I knew was going to happen, and it was evident very early on that people were going, "Oh, I feel reconnected to what I'm doing because I talked to somebody else about what they're doing."
Yeah.
And so it's such a funny almost it's like a side effect I hadn't really thought of because people who work in this industry, like you noted, they're fantastic. They're amazing humans doing some of the coolest work. I've learned about so many missions. I never would have learned about them otherwise. So that's exciting for me. And it's nice to have people who are champions on both sides. I've heard lovely reviews of you after people did live at least, well, Sonya was so great. And I was like, yeah, but they're probably not a lot of people are getting access to all of this psychology and neurobiology you're talking about. Most people are not going to have had that exposure. So that's very cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
That's awesome.
a lot of fun.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I'd love if you would leave off telling us a little bit about your work and services you offer and how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so I provide one-on-one coaching for the motivated change agent. So it's people in senior leadership, also emerging leaders, people who want to use their imagination to create better workplaces within nonprofit. And I help them reconnect with joy in their work. You were saying like so many cool missions. Like actually, we have access to joy in so many ways, so help them reconnect with joy and bring in effective leadership skills, help them develop those and nurturing habits to take care of themselves. And I have some master classes coming up this fall, and I'm building a community of people, a place called Rejuvenation Roundtable that's coming out where
Very
you can
cool.
come and breathe and be encouraged in the work that you're doing and knowing that you're supported. So,
That's amazing.
people should reach out. I do free discovery calls and connect with me around what could leadership feel like? How can we feel better? Let's get off the burnout train and feel empowered in our work because it's so important and it's really exciting. And yeah, that's what I
That's
do.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sonya. This was a pleasure. And thanks for all of your support over the last 10 months of building the hive.
Absolutely. It's so important to connect. And if you haven't signed up for the people listening, if you haven't signed up, get on a chat and be encouraged. Meet some cool people.
That's awesome. Thank you.